Week 7 of college football brings us the most intense slate of games we've seen in a while, and we're picking the biggest games against the spread with Brad Crawford and Chris Hummer. The odds here coming from Caesars Sportsbook. Chris, you're coming off a hot week, but both you guys over 500, and that's what matters, is that we're turning a profit here. Let's start with the SEC Game of the Week on CBS. Number 3 Alabama at number 6 Tennessee. Some early line movement on this one. The public money going toward the underdog, but Brad, it kind of feels like Vegas anticipating the reigning Heisman winner Bryce Young will be a go. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the biggest home game in more than a decade for Tennessee. At least that's what the outsiders are calling Saturday at Neyland Stadium. I'm here to say that this road trip to Georgia a few weeks from now is going to be even more important because the Vols are going to beat the Crimson Tide outright on Saturday. Look, Alabama has played with fire several times already, and even if Bryce Young plays inside Neyland Stadium, I don't think he's going to be 100%. So I'll take 7.5 points here to be safe, but I'm picking Tennessee to win outright too.
Brad out here dropping bombs. I don't have the ammunition to match that. I was going to take Tennessee to cover and feel pretty good about it, but I do agree with Brad that this is going to be a pretty close game. The only two times Alabama's faced like talent this year, Texas and Texas A&M, it was a one-score outing. And I think if you're looking for a weak point for Alabama, on the defensive side of the ball at least, it's the corners. Those guys haven't really been tested in a significant way this year outside of those two games against Texas and Texas A&M. And you saw those corners struggle at times. And I think Tennessee has just as much firepower, if not more, than both of those programs out of the Lone Star State. I think Tennessee's going to put up a lot of points this week. A healthy Bryce Young or not, I think Alabama will too, and that's going to make the difference here. Tennessee is abhorrent in the secondary. They give up a ton of yardage. But I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think that stadium is going to be as electric as it gets in college football. And I think this is going to be really close throughout with Alabama pulling it out late.
To your point, Chris, the Tide have those two struggle wins, and Tennessee, one of the best teams covering the number at 4-1 against the spread. Let's stay in the SEC and go to the Swamp. LSU at Florida. The Gators have won 8 straight home games versus unranked opponents. And guess what the last loss of this type was? It was 2020 against LSU, the infamous shoe game. Gators favored by 2.5 at home. Chris, what happens here?
Yeah, no Marco Wilson this week, so no shoe tosses, I suppose. But this is a really tough game for me to pick. I'm going to go with my gut here, and that tells me LSU is a slightly better team. I think the Tigers are a more complete outfit. Florida is pretty decent defensively, but struggles to throw the ball. I think with the play we've seen from Jaden Daniels recently, they're a more balanced offensive attack out of LSU. I think LSU does just enough here to win in the Swamp. I think the difference is Anthony Richardson has just kind of been off recently, and if LSU can turn him over a couple times, which is extremely possible, I think LSU has a great chance to win this game on the road.
I tell you what, I really thought Hummer would go the other way here and take the Gators, but I'm going to side with him. You know, here are two teams that, like Chris said, are really difficult to project this season. Both of them go through periods of struggle, hot play, almost equal offensively. I think whoever wins this at the line of scrimmage will take care of business in the Swamp. You have two quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson who would prefer taking off behind a blocker rather than stay in the pocket and make a strong throw. So this line, to me, LSU, it leans in their direction. I'll take the Tigers on the road to not only cover but win the game.
All right, so you're both predicting a 4th straight win in this series for LSU. Moving on to the Big House, Penn State and Michigan, two undefeated top 10 teams in a battle for the Big Ten East. Wolverines favored by a touchdown at home. Brad, who you got?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this game for weeks because this is the first time all season that we're really going to see both of these teams tested. Both of these offenses at times can be a little spotty, moving the football with a consistent rhythm, but I think you're going to see a game in which the under is probably the best play here, not the point spread. Penn State's not going to give up a ton of yardage in chunks to Blake Corum, Michigan's leading rusher. I think J.J. McCarthy, quarterback for the Wolverines, is going to make a play or two late in the fourth quarter to win this game. So give me Michigan, and I do think the Wolverines are able to cover 7. But if you feel slightly, off guard about it, go ahead and buy half a point, take Michigan minus 6.5.
Yeah, I think Michigan's the better team here. I think the key word there is I think. Michigan hasn't played anybody of this caliber so far this year. They've coasted on one of the softest opening schedules in the country. So while I expect Michigan to handle business here, I really do lean towards a Penn State cover on the road. There are some question marks I have for Penn State here, particularly their ability to run the ball consistently against Michigan's front. But I also have questions about J.J. McCarthy and his ability to perform against a defense of this caliber. I think Sean Clifford does enough to keep Penn State in this game. And while Michigan wins, Penn State does cover.
A few trends, because Brad mentioned the under here. The under is 5-0-1 for Michigan this season, and Penn State is 0-6 on the road versus AP top 5 teams under James Franklin. The Nits have scored 17 points combined in those 6 losses. Okay, back to the SEC we go. Mississippi State at Kentucky, another top 25 matchup. The Bulldogs favored by 7 on the road, and a couple of wills to keep an eye on in this game. State quarterback Will Rogers breaking all kinds of records. He needs 2 more touchdowns to break the school record for 2. And it's unclear if Will Levis on the other side, if he will play this week for the Cats. Chris, where are you putting your money here?
Yeah, I might wait till later in the week to see what the line does in terms of Will Levis to really make this decision. But right now, I think there's a lot of good value with Kentucky, assuming Will Levis does play. Mike Leach has only averaged 16.5 points while at Mississippi State against Kentucky in his career. There are very few coordinators in college football, or I guess head coaches in this circumstance, or play callers, however you want to put it, better than Mark Stoops at defending the air raid in these type of offenses. He has a ton of experience doing it from his time in the Big 12 and the Pac-12. So I think Kentucky's defense keeps it in this game. And while Kentucky's offense has been a struggle all year, if Levis is able to play, I think they do enough through the air and with Chris Rodriguez on the ground to cover in this game. I like Mississippi State to win, but I think there's really great value with Kentucky to cover.
Yeah, for me, it's pile on Kentucky week after the Wildcats lost to Ole Miss and South Carolina in back-to-back games. The offensive line right now is really struggling. They had a replacement. I think it was a left tackle Saturday night against South Carolina, could not win that game. And Mississippi State defensive coordinator Zach Arnett, his 3-3-5 look has always given Kentucky issues. So the Wildcats are supposed to get Will Levis back at quarterback. That should help. But I do think Mississippi State continues its hot streak in SEC play, wins this game on the road. But I will take Kentucky plus 7 points to cover as long as Will Levis is a starting quarterback.
All right, and we will end with the top 25 matchup in the Pac-12. USC at Utah with the Utes, a 3.5-point home favorite. Utah coach Kyle Whittingham taking some veiled shots at Lincoln Riley earlier this week, adding some intrigue to this matchup. Brad, what do you think happens here?
No love for unbeaten USC from odds makers this week. At least that's what it appears with this line. I'm underwhelmed by Utah at this point, however. I picked the Utes last week against UCLA to win. I thought they'd beat Florida in week 1. Utah's 0-2 in both those games. Neither worked out for me as a bettor. Despite being number 1 out west in total defense, I think Utah got banged up a pretty good bit last week against the Bruins, and I think the Trojans have similar talent. So USC has lost 3 of its last 4 games in Salt Lake City, by the way, but I like the Trojans with 3.5 points in this spot. Anytime I'm giving points with a Lincoln Riley top 5 caliber team, I'm going to take it.
Going the other way, Brad. I can't quit Utah. I had them as a preseason college football playoff team, and I might as well go down with the ship. But I feel really good this week about Utah for a few reasons. First, USC's defense has been a problem, quietly all year. The only time they faced a top 50 offense this year and against Oregon State, they almost lost that game. I know Oregon State only had 14 points, but that's because Oregon State had 4 really ill-timed turnovers to give USC that game. I think Utah is equipped offensively to put up points on this USC defense, which has had its struggles. And frankly, I think Utah's the best defense USC's faced all year. It's going to be difficult to contain those receivers with the way Caleb Williams is playing, but in one of the most difficult environments to win in college football, at Utah, I really like Utah to win this game and to knock off USC from the ranks of the unbeatens.
All right, and a trend for everybody else who can't quit Utah. The Utes, 30-16-1 against the spread in Pac-12 games since 2017. That's the highest cover percentage in the conference over that span. All right, Brad and Chris, thanks as always for your picks. Let's make some more money this week. And for more college football content, stay with us on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel all week long.